going to talk about one thing that I truly wish I had known when I set off on this journey. And that is, it's colloquially kind of known as the map is not the territory. And this one came to mind because I'm in a place right now which is not really technically on the map. You could find it on the map if you look, but it's not marked. And it's tremendously beautiful. So I'm in Sedona, and I don't know if you can see, I'm at the end of a very long canyon. And I'm not going to tell you exactly where it is, because at the end of this canyon, I found this ancestral dwelling, which is not on the map. And it's got me thinking about the map is not the territory. So, why should you care? Why should you care about the map is not a territory? And why did I wish that I had known this long before? This is all about internal representation systems inside of your mind, effectively. So mind, in actual fact, is a map. Mind is a construction. When I'm not quite sure when this occurs, right? But when you grow up, you very rapidly come to understand somehow or other that I, is in this bit, yeah? So there's the skull, there's the brain inside the skull, and my thinking somehow comes from the brain, yeah? And therefore it must have started when I was born, and presumably it turns off when I die, yeah? And that's kind of where we begin. And then we look at ourselves, at our finite body, we look at other, and we kind of go, okay, this is me, that is something else, and we start making stuff, we start thinking, we start objectifying, we start judging, we start problem solving. Maps are very useful, but they're not representing the truth, okay? The easiest example is the London Underground, right? Which is a fantastic thing for one purpose alone, which is to help you get around London underground. But nobody says that the London Underground is representing truth, yeah? When you pop up from Leicester Square Station or Piccadilly Circus, it doesn't look like a little black circle with a white dot in the centre connected by a brown line and a blue line and so on and so forth. Yeah, it doesn't look anything like that. But that doesn't matter, because the map has done its job. And the same thing is going on inside your mind all day long. We are making representation systems which are useful for the particular purpose that we build them for, yeah? They're like kind of rules of thumb that get us through the day. And so we do objectify. That's what we do. But you've got to think, right? There's an echo in here because there's a huge cliff. You know, I'm in a cave. It's not an accident that this is here, right? Someone's decided this is a fantastic place to put a home. So by objectifying, you're kind of assuming that you're outside of the system, that you're looking upon the system as if you're not part of the system. That's not true, right? So if you consider the methodology by which you try to problem solve, this is fantastic for a scientific method where you can stop all variables and become an observer. But it doesn't work with a lot of things internal, yeah? So when you have problems, it's very important to realize that the map is not the system, that the rule of thumb that you're using might be kind of sort of a little bit right, but it's certainly not all the information, and it's probably quite comprehensively wrong, yeah? Here's the most important thing. To use a map, you have to know where you're beginning, yeah? You have to know where you are on the map. Transport that to self-awareness, to understanding thou-self. You have to understand what I is, okay? So if we consider that mind is a construct that we've come up with, what is behind mind? Behind mind is awareness, yeah? And the thing is, you can't objectify awareness. If I think about my awareness, it feels timeless, yeah? The awareness that I have today feels pretty much identical to the awareness that I felt a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They all felt the same as the me that I'm experiencing now. in my sense of awareness. And the thing is, you can't objectify awareness. You can only go into awareness. You go further in to awareness. And this is so important to think about, because you can't start objectifying yourself, because you are yourself. It's like asking the sun to turn its light upon itself. It can't be done. So awareness creates this understanding, this concept of consciousness, of mind, of body, of longevity, of what it is to be me, about what happens if I put my hand in the fire, and so on. But the awareness which underpins all that is somewhat different. Yeah? This is so important because the process by which you understand yourself has to give up on the idea of objectifying, of looking at yourself as if you're an outsider, because that's never going to happen. You are the thing that you are trying to understand. This is why I love hypnosis. This is why I love meditation, because it's a way of quietening what I think I might be, the objectifying side of me, and instead letting awareness become aware of awareness. Yeah, and kind of diving into that and seeing where that comes from and where it leads to. What my aware truths are. What are my constructed core values? And then what lies behind those core values at that level of bodily awareness? What is the meaning that makes the difference that makes the difference? You can't do that by thinking too hard about it, right? That's basically what I'm saying, because when you think about it, you start to identify with your thoughts as if they're you. You start to identify with the map. You start to identify with mind. You forget that mind is a construct, that the story is a construct. That's when you're off track, yeah? So that's why hypnosis is fantastic. That's my little plug for hypnosis, because it brings you back to the inner experience, a sort of a heightened level of inner awareness. Yeah? I think that's all I need to say about the map is not the territory. So effectively, it's a way of reminding yourself that you are not your thoughts. When you forget and you kind of think that a thought is you, that's when you need to pay attention, because that's when you're off track. Yeah? When you can see yourself and objectify other, that's also not you. Yeah, that is a representation system that you've just created because it's convenient. The truth of the situation is this inner awareness, which, as I say, is somewhat timeless. I'm tempted to start getting into existentialism. You know, it's quite clear that I think, therefore I am, is something to conjure with. Yeah. I also think of you, and therefore I am. Let's leave it at that for now. Yeah. But I think the most important thing is question what you think you're sure about, because the map is not the territory. All right, take care. Thanks for watching. If this is useful, as I say, I'm going to do a whole load of these. I'm going to try and summarize everything that I really should have known when I didn't have a clue when I began on this and this inadvertent journey. So subscribe and you'll see some of the others. All right, cheers. Bye.